Kyle had always tried to convince Connor and me to go hunting with him, but we'd always put it off. Neither of us were hunters, and honestly, we weren't interested. Kyle, however, was a natural outdoorsman. He knew how to field dress a deer, split wood, and start a fire from scratch. He even seemed comfortable sleeping on hard ground. Connor and I were the opposite. We preferred the idea of a hunting trip over the actual reality. A weekend of drinking in the mountains sounded fun, but waking up before dawn to trek through the woods and kill an animal did not. One late November, Kyle finally talked us into it. Rifle season was open, and the weather was cold enough to keep the bugs away. He had a spot in the mountains where he rarely saw other people. To be fair, the promise of good food and plenty of beer sealed the deal. Our plan was simple: drive up Friday morning, hike in, set up camp, and hunt all weekend. I'm not a hunter, so I'll do my best with the terminology. Connor agreed because he'd agree to anything for a good story, and I agreed because I didn't want to be the odd one out. We loaded Kyle's truck before sunrise and drove for hours into the mountains. Kyle, ever the teacher, walked us through everything: rifle safety, quiet walking techniques, how to spot deer signs and hidden trails. After parking near an old logging road, we hiked for what felt like 10 miles. By the time we reached Kyle's chosen spot, my shoulders ached, and my legs were trembling from the steep climbs. We found a flat area by a small creek and set up camp. Kyle did most of the work. Connor and I were practically useless. As darkness fell, we had our tents pitched, a fire roaring, and a ring of logs to sit on. That first night felt perfect. The woods were silent except for the crackling fire and the creek. We drank beer, reminisced about high school, and teased Connor about his tent-pitching skills. It was a genuinely amazing moment, and I actually started to understand the appeal. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods, we heard a scream. We all froze. Kyle tilted his head, listening intently, while Connor, nervously, joked that it sounded like a woman being murdered. Kyle suggested it could be a fox explaining how they could make human-like screams. I desperately wanted to believe him, but it didn't sound like any fox I'd ever heard. Because it was so far away, we managed to convince ourselves it was an animal. After a minute or two, we resumed talking, though the relaxed atmosphere was gone. We all kept pausing, listening, even Kyle. About 5 minutes later, the scream erupted again, much closer this time. The conversation instantly died. It sounded like it was only a football field away, if that. It was loud enough to kill any remaining jokes. It was unequivocally a woman screaming. One long, piercing shriek that ended abruptly. Connor stood up, staring into the darkness beyond the firelight. Kyle joined him. Connor then foolishly called out, asking if someone needed help. I pointed out how stupid that was. We all stood there, listening for a reply. Nothing. Kyle looked genuinely uncomfortable. He reasoned that if it were a person, they would have answered. He then instructed us to put out the fire and get into our tents. The fire was a beacon marking our exact location. We extinguished it quickly and scrambled into our tents, rifles close at hand. I barely slept that night, every rustle and creak amplified by my fear. Eventually, exhaustion must have taken over, because I woke up to a gray, cold morning. The need to pee finally forced me out of my sleeping bag. Immediately, I noticed something was wrong. Our chairs were overturned, a cooler was on its side, and a snack bag was torn open and dragged a few feet away. Kyle's backpack, which had been leaning against a tree, was now lying near the cold fire pit. I called for Kyle and Connor, who emerged, half asleep. Kyle surveyed the scene and immediately suggested a bear had probably come through. It was the easiest explanation and a welcome one. We hadn't properly secured our food, and the smells would have attracted animals. The strange thing was that nothing much was actually gone. Things were more moved around than eaten or stolen. Still, Kyle sounded confident, and I desperately wanted a normal explanation. He then suggested we move camp deeper into the woods, both because of the bear and, to get closer to his planned hunting spot. We packed up and relocated. Our second campsite was further from the creek, nestled in a denser patch of woods on a slope. It felt far more isolated, even if it wasn't much further in. We hunted for most of the day. Kyle split us up but kept us in sight initially, showing us where to sit and how to watch the tree lines. Connor treated it like a game at first, but by mid-afternoon, even he had quieted down. There's something about sitting silently in the woods for hours with a rifle that changes your mood. Late in the day, Kyle shot a deer. It happened quickly. I heard the rifle crack, then Kyle yelling. When Connor and I reached him, the buck was down in a patch of brush about 40 yards away. It was a decent-sized animal. Seeing a dead deer up close was different from a photo. Kyle had us drag it back to camp, which was grueling work. Once there, he began field dressing it, then showed us how to skin and butcher it. Connor feigned interest, but I could tell he was struggling. I just felt sick. The smell was awful, and the whole process felt brutal. In moments of fear, uncertainty, or danger, reciting Ayatul Kursi acts as a powerful shield. It reminds us that Allah is the ultimate protector over all things. Recite it after every prayer, before sleeping, and when leaving home. No harm can touch you when Allah's protection surrounds you.